So the question you always get is, yeah, what happens when atheists die? The way I tend to answer that question is kind of to throw it back to people who are asking it to me, which is to say, well, where were you before you were born? You weren't around. It's not like you were in pain. It's not like you were in elation. You were just not there. And that's what's going to happen when you die. You're just no longer there.
Okay guys, so you just seen a video where this individual completely denies the hereafter, right? It just doesn't exist. When you die, it's all over. And most atheists hold this type of thinking. Now, when asked and probed as to why they believe with such certainty and conviction that once you die, that's it, it's finished, all they have to say in return is, well, there is no evidence for it. And I assume when they talk about evidence, they're talking about empirical data, something tangible. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to the afterlife, when it comes to metaphysical realities, you can't assess this through empiricism or science, right? You can't provide proof for or against the afterlife, at least direct proof for or against the afterlife. This type of thinking and reasoning, well, because there's no empirical proof or data, therefore that thing does not exist, and I am certain of that, it doesn't logically follow. If I was to say, now imagine you can think and reason the way you can now in your mother's wombs when you were when you were developing inside the womb of your mother, and someone said to you, well, soon you're going to go out into this amazing world, and you're going to leave this womb. Well, by your reasoning, you would say, well, I haven't seen this world. I can't assess it. I haven't touched it. I haven't sensed it in any way, shape, or form. Therefore, this world does not exist. Well, your denial at that point, just because you haven't seen the world you're about to go into, doesn't mean now that you're not going to go into this world. Of course, every single one of us was born, right? So just because there is a lack of empirical data, if you like, for the afterlife, which is going to be the case anyway, it doesn't therefore logically follow that the afterlife does not exist. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm saying here. On top of this, most of the things we believe in, even in this life, are not based on empirical data. For example, every single one watching this video now, all of us, we believe our parents are our parents. But most of us have not done a DNA test. Most of us believe this based on testimony, and we are certain of this. So, point being that, number one, the lack of empirical data is not a reason. It doesn't logically follow that therefore that particular thing that you can't assess empirically doesn't exist. Secondly, most of the things we believe in, even in this world, are not based on empirical data or evidence. They are based on other routes to knowledge, such as testimony. Although it's not the scope of this video to establish the proof for the hereafter in and of itself, what I would say is that, number one, is if you can establish that the Quran is from God, and I would say this is the greatest proof, if you can establish the Quran is from God, which we can do, and I'll probably touch upon this in future videos, something you guys can look into yourself, then whatever the Quran says must necessarily be true. Why? Because it comes from the all-knowing Creator, and therefore it speaks about the afterlife, which it does, and therefore the afterlife exists. Number two, if you look through human history, it's almost a universal reality that people believed in something to come after this life. There is something that's there, right? That must say something. It's human experience, human, whatever you want to call it, right? It's been there throughout history. That's something to consider at the very least. Thirdly, I would say, and this is what interests me the most, is us as human beings, deep down inside, I would say we have a notion, an intuition that there is something coming after we die. And the reason I say this, one of the reasons, is because when you think about the whole idea of death, whether you're an atheist or whoever you are, we fear death. How can you fear death if you really believe that when you die, it's all over, all experience is over, your consciousness is gone, it's finished, you have no recollection anymore, you go back to nothing? If this is the case, then why should you fear death, right? If anything, you should fear it less than anything else in life that you may be worried about. But the whole idea of thinking about death and being anxious about it and fearing it gives us I believe that it points towards something that we are recognizing on some deeper spiritual level, that something is coming. Something is coming, and we are trying to, the best we can, figure it out and prepare for it. Just some things to think about. But just to summarize, this whole way of reasoning, there's no proof for it, therefore it does not exist, or no empirical proof for it, is not really an argument against the hereafter. And I would really encourage anyone that's searching, anyone that's looking, anyone that's inquiring about these questions to pick up the Quran and read it for yourselves, and at the very least do that. No one's telling you to believe it, accept it straight away. Just read it, see what you think, see what it says to you, and until next time, take care.
I think the thing that it kind of, that bothers me is, I'm alive and conscious and I'm doing things, and then, like, I know that one day I will die, and that, I've been told and believe that, if there's nothing, like, it's just nothing after that, like you don't be reincarnated or whatever you want to, say happens to you, just like if there's just nothing, that's just unacceptable to me, and that's kind of scary in a way.